Okay, so this conversation, I'm gonna start by going like this because we're gonna be talking about CO2 emissions. But before we go into that, let's just adjust this camera a little bit. Thank you for the comments once again, liking everything that we're saying. The conversation keeps on going here, and this is the whole point. So we are expecting a negative impact mainly on pricing in 2024. For example, in Europe, we expect sales to grow by 20%. And also, this is driven by the stricter CO2 limitations, which come into effect in 2025. So, in less than a year, there will be limitations as to how ICEs, internal combustion engine cars, can actually come into cities. And that's going to help us, the electric mobility sector. Now, this still sounds like a lot, but keep in mind that a lot of new models will be launched this year, whereas the ICA fleet is becoming more unattractive from a Model H perspective. All in all, the situation in Europe reminds us a little bit of China about a year ago, right, 2023, when subsidies were phased out and subsequently transaction prices were dropped by 50%. Volumes remain unaffected as electric vehicles became more affordable. We're going to have to explain this again and know about OEMs that can even afford a 10% price cut or more currently, even without much impact on the operating margins. First, there's a significant raw material cost tailwind in 2024. And two, the EV penetration ratio only stands current at 10% at most OEMs. As you know, SORIANO Motore is an OEM, the only OEM in Italy. So we are pretty close to these numbers that I'm telling you. It only becomes dangerous if the electric vehicle prices are also dragging down ICE prices. And this is also happening in China. We provide more details on these EV prices and EV volume forecasts in another. Well, actually, I'm not going to write it here so that you guys can write it, read it, and comment on it. A couple last points that I like to mention. These new CO2 emissions rules come into effect in Europe in 2025. For in less than a year, these targets basically come into place in all over Europe. Despite no stringent targets in 2024, it is important to keep in mind a significant step up in 2025 for the next year's volume development. Significant sales increases cannot be achieved overnight if the electric vehicle sales targets are high in 2025. So this would ideally be preceded by an initial sales increase already in 2024, which is something that we are seeing ourselves with most distributors in Europe for the SORIANO Motore EV Jaguaro Serial 1 units. What are the mechanisms that provides additional EV penetration incentives? Well, let's think about this. From 2025 onwards, another zero and low emission vehicle factor mechanism will come into effect to incentivize low CO2 emission vehicles. Give you an example. In Italy today, if you have a petrol or diesel driven car, operated car, you have to pay €5 per day to go into the city between the hours of 7 a.m. and 7:30 p.m. This is just the first phase on how this is working. Typical cities in Europe are, if you look at them, they're regionalized or segmented into A, B, and C. A being the outer rim, B and C the center of the towns. In the center of European cities is where you find most of the important landmarks and centers, squares, parks, and monuments, and also business units, business buildings, and so on. So it is really becoming something of a sort of complication, because if you do have an ICE car, you have no choice but to switch into the hybrids, into a fully electrical car. That's an advantage for SORIANO Motore, being the first OEM in Italy, but also complicates matters as we need to ramp up that kind of production for the demand that is going to be happening. So this is happening in every capital city and main cities around Europe, and it will probably be happening in the United States in the next 5 years or so. So keep aware of this. We do want CO2 emissions to be reduced because we want to help our planet. More people, more CO2, more bad cars, bad transportation. So we're looking at e-mobility all across the industries, from airplanes to vessels, ships, motorcycles, cars, scooters, bicycles, you name it. Hope this helps. And again, if you have any questions, corporate@sorianogroup.com. And I look forward to hearing from you, as I'm getting a lot of emails now from you all. You know who to contact about this stuff. Take care, guys.